The ground shook without warning. In the dead of night, deep beneath Iran's mountains and deserts, the earth groaned, low, sudden, unsettling. Walls trembled, windows rattled, phones buzzed with alerts. Within minutes, social media lit up with one question that refuses to die in the Middle East. Was this an earthquake or something far more dangerous? Because in this region of secrets, sanctions, and shadows, tremors are never just tremors. Iran sits on one of the most unstable pieces of the planet. Massive tectonic plates collide beneath its soil, making earthquakes a tragic fact of life. Cities have fallen before, thousands have died. The earth here is restless, and history proves it. But this time felt different. Reports came in quickly. The quake was shallow. The timing was strange. The location uncomfortably close to sensitive military and nuclear facilities. And almost immediately, whispers turned into accusations. That wasn't natural. That felt controlled. That was a test. Within hours, speculation crossed borders. The word no one wants to say: nuclear. For decades, Iran's nuclear program has been the most watched, most feared, and most debated project on Earth. Sanctions, sabotage, assassinations, cyber attacks, airstrike threats, all of it tied to one question: how close is Iran to the bomb? Western intelligence agencies have warned for years that Iran has enriched uranium far beyond civilian needs. Inspectors have been restricted, cameras unplugged, facilities buried deep underground, far deeper than any unconventional bunker. And now the ground shakes. Coincidence or confirmation? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Underground nuclear tests are designed to look like earthquakes. They don't produce mushroom clouds. They don't announce themselves. They whisper through the earth. Seismologists can tell the difference, but only when data is complete, transparent, and shared. And Iran doesn't share easily. A nuclear test, if small enough, if deep enough, can blur into the noise of natural seismic activity, especially in a country already riddled with fault lines. That's why rumors explode before facts do. After the tremors, Iranian authorities moved fast, but not fast enough. They called it an earthquake. They offered brief statements. They shut down questions. No international observers invited. No raw seismic data released. No access to sensitive sites. And silence in geopolitics is never neutral. Because if Iran had tested a device, even a primitive one, it would change everything overnight. If Iran crossed that line, the Middle East would enter a new era of fear. Israel would no longer be the region's sole nuclear power. Saudi Arabia would demand its own deterrent immediately. Turkey, Egypt, and others would reassess everything. One test could trigger a nuclear domino effect across the region, and globally, markets would panic, oil prices would spike, diplomacy would collapse. Because a nuclear-armed Iran wouldn't just threaten its rivals, it would shatter decades of non-proliferation efforts worldwide. Behind closed doors, analysts worked through the night. They studied seismic wave patterns. They compared depth and magnitude. They cross-checked satellite images for disturbed Earth, heat signatures, or unusual activity. So far, no smoking gun. No definitive proof of a nuclear explosion, but also no definitive proof that there wasn't one, and that gray zone is the most dangerous place of all. Iran has mastered a powerful weapon without ever detonating a bomb: uncertainty. By pushing just close enough, just quietly enough, Iran keeps its enemies guessing. Do they have a bomb? Can they build one fast? Would an attack trigger retaliation? That uncertainty alone deters strikes. A quiet tremor, real or staged, only strengthens that strategy. Because even the possibility that Iran tested a device forces rivals to hesitate. Washington watches closely. Tel Aviv watches nervously. The Gulf states watch in fear. Publicly, officials urge calm. Privately, contingency plans are updated. Because if Iran ever confirms a test, if the proof becomes undeniable, the response will not be limited to words. Sanctions would be the least of it. Here is the truth, stripped of drama. There is no verified evidence that Iran has conducted a nuclear test. There is no confirmed proof that Iran currently possesses a nuclear weapon. But there is also no doubt that Iran is closer than ever before. The tremors may have been natural, they may have been coincidence, they may have been nothing, or they may have been a message. Deliberately unclear, deliberately unsettling. In geopolitics, wars don't always begin with explosions. Sometimes they begin with silence, with denial, with a shaking ground and unanswered questions. Tonight, the earth beneath Iran has settled, but the fear hasn't. Because whether that tremor was caused by nature or by man, one reality is undeniable. The world is closer than ever to finding out what Iran is truly capable of. And when the answers come, it won't arrive as a rumor, it will arrive as history. Long after the tremors faded, something else remained. Not dust, not fear, but attention. Satellites adjusted their orbits. Signals intelligence spiked. Submarines shifted positions quietly beneath distant seas. Because when the ground shakes in Iran, the world doesn't just listen, it leans in. Publicly, analysts spoke in careful language, insufficient evidence, likely tectonic, nothing conclusive, but behind classified doors, the tone was colder. Raw seismic data doesn't lie, but it can be interpreted. A nuclear test doesn't scream, it pulses. A sharp, unnatural release of energy, short, violent, precise. Some analysts reportedly paused longer than usual over the readouts. Not long enough to accuse, long enough to worry. But if this had been a test, it would not have been a celebration. It would have been a trial run. Iran's most sensitive sites aren't visible from the sky. They are buried beneath rock, concrete and centuries of paranoia. Designed to survive bunker busters, designed to survive first strikes, designed to survive detection. If a device were ever tested, this is where it would happen. Deep enough to muffle the blast, small enough to avoid attention, just powerful enough to answer a single question. Does it work? And if that question has already been answered, no announcement would follow, not yet. This is the era the world now lives in. Not confirmed nuclear powers, but suspected ones. Not open tests, but quiet thresholds crossed in secret. Iran doesn't need to declare a weapon to change the balance of power. It only needs its enemies to believe it might have won. That belief alone reshapes strategy. Airstrike plans become riskier, preemptive attacks become unthinkable, every decision suddenly carries the weight of catastrophe, ambiguity becomes armor. For years, experts spoke of breakout time, how long Iran would need to build a bomb if it chose to. Months became weeks, weeks became days. Now some whisper that the clock may have already stopped. Because once knowledge is gained, once a design is proven, time no longer matters. Only intent does, and intent can change overnight. In Tel Aviv, war rooms run simulations without sleep. In Riyadh, quiet conversations grow louder. In Washington, red lines blur. No one wants to strike first, no one wants to strike second. And that hesitation is exactly where history breaks. Because nuclear crises rarely explode from certainty, they erupt from miscalculation. Not a test for science, a test for the world, a signal wrapped in deniability, a warning without words, a reminder that something irreversible may already exist underground. If so, the message was simple: you are running out of time. Tonight, Iran denies everything. Tomorrow, officials will still call it an earthquake. Next week, the world will move on to the next crisis, the next headline. But somewhere beneath the mountains, reality does not move on. Knowledge cannot be unlearned. Thresholds cannot be uncrossed. And the most dangerous weapons in human history do not announce themselves with explosions, they announce themselves with silence. So when the earth shakes again, and it will, the question won't be what caused it. The question will be, was that the moment the world realized it was already too late?